All right. Hello, everyone. I'm still Shawn Reynaldo. I'm still here. We're halfway through the day, and I'm very excited for this panel. I actually wrote about it in my newsletter this week, if you read that. We're going to be talking about Aslice, which you guys announced the closure, I guess it was pretty much a year ago. And with me, obviously, Zach, DVS1, who it was his idea in the first place, and then also Ethan. I don't mean that in a bad way. It was your idea.
Great intro.
And then Ethan Holben, who is the CEO. And actually, I thought that would be a good place to start because I think most people here know who Zach is already. Ethan, who are you? Where did you come from? And how did you get involved in this project in the first place? And what was your role there?
No, fun question. But no, I grew up, I think, like a lot of people you're probably hearing from today, I grew up in DIY music, like a lot of people, and old enough to have experienced the raves pre-phones and music pre-phones. So I say that because that DIY thinking and this finding things for your own and doing things for your local community is part of my DNA as well, and I think was a big reason why Zach and I connected. Professionally, I've worked at a lot of different media publications and record labels and distribution companies. But a lot of people I met through Red Bull Music Academy, and I would say that was really what gave me the, I guess I built the foundations that I thought I brought to the table at Aslice, like to be able to do a project at that scale and feel like you could deliver something that was really important. And so I guess we got introduced. I'd reached out to Zach, the first support organized Sustain, and I'd seen it. I knew you'd hosted it, and I sent Zach an email, actually. I said, Zach, hey, listen, we don't know each other well, but if you do this again, I'd love to just figure out how I could contribute. And we pulled that email out, I guess, like maybe a year or so.
I didn't even remember that.
But swimming around these spaces, I think I try to stay involved in community-oriented projects and projects that I think bring value to the world, right? There's so many things out there that are just a cash grab. So I try to position myself and kind of focus on doing things that matter.
So this is a bit of an aside, but I'm a very full disclosure kind of person. Ethan and I know each other. We worked together at Accelerator magazine, which doesn't exist anymore. It was good at one time when we were there. And we also worked together at Red Bull Music Academy. So maybe that gives me some level of bias. But I promised we're doing a real interview. And Aslice, it's been a year now. Obviously, when the closure announcement was made, there was a lot of noise, there was a lot of comments, there was a lot of people chiming in about it. You two and the whole Aslice team stayed pretty quiet. You put out the closure announcement, you put out a report, which we'll talk about in a bit, but you've had a year to reflect now. When you look back on it, how do you feel? Like, how are you feeling when you think about Aslice? Is it, oh, fuck.
No comment. No, I'm just kidding.
Are you relieved? Are you sad? Or, yeah.
I think on a personal level for all of us, I think there's some level of calm and relief now. But on a professional level, I think our team learned about us closing it a few months, obviously, before the public learned. So I think we were already past our initial shock, and we were just dealing with the motions of what we had to deal with. I think looking back right now, and even in this whole last year, we're very proud of what we did. We don't look at our closure as a failure, as a negative. We actually look at it as an opportunity to assess and kind of see that, like, we set out to do the impossible, and we actually proved it was possible. And even if it's not us that fixes the problem, we feel like we set the wheels in motion. We got the conversation started. We proved things are possible from just a handful of people like us, without corporate backing, without experience directly in that thing that we decided to do, but having enough experience in life and business and technology to figure it out and do it. And I think proud would be probably my favorite word for this. I think it was sad to see it go, but we're very proud of what we did.
You feel the same, Ethan?
I think Zach nailed it. I think I miss it. I think the funny thing is, and I don't miss a lot of what we were going through because it was really hard work. Like, it was really a tough job to do, but I miss seeing the impact of it. I think that's more than anything. I agree with everything Zach said, but seeing people, the joy and the reactions from people that validation of seeing their music get played, I guess like that felt really special to see. And like for us behind the scenes, there was this nerdy fascination of like, wow, the person that's getting the most plays this month is somebody that none of us have ever heard of. So that you could actually see that there was an equalizing effect, that like you could just make great music and that would mean your records get played. That like gave me a lot of hope, I think. So for me, I miss seeing that having that sentiment every week.
I mean, I think, the theme of even the first two talks a little bit were community.
Yeah.
And I think in this fast-paced, moving world, all the things that we talk about leading back to community are getting forgotten about. And what we did with Aslice, I think, on top of just trying to fix this royalty issue, it was create community, because we created connections with people that were outside of Instagram, social media, and social pressure. It was actually like genuine connection. Like, I like your music, I played it, I want to show you good faith and give you something, and then maybe we connect. And that was the one, I mean, just echoing Ethan, but like the stories that I would hear from people about who they connected with based on the information or the connections created from Aslice were huge. And I remember the first time my records got played and the feeling I had. And I can only imagine that same feeling happening week after week after week had Aslice existed when my first tracks came out,
I mean, we're going to talk about how Aslice worked and what you guys were doing, but I want to go back in time to even before that, because when you came up with the idea, I mean, this problem of DJs, their fees going up and up, producers getting paid less and less for a multitude of reasons, what made you think in the first place, A, this is a problem, and B, I'm the guy to solve this?
I'm asking myself that all the time. Had COVID not happened, I probably wouldn't have taken enough time to consider fixing that problem. But I'm one of those people that I'm a problem solver, whether it be a sound system that needs a little tweaking, or something that's hanging off the wall, or something broken in my house. I'm one of those people that I like to fix things socially, physically, mentally, whatever they are. And COVID happened. I suddenly had time on my hands, and why not try to save the world? I mean, it's maybe I'm crazy for doing it, but if I look back at my life, that's kind of the way I've rolled my whole life. Is I've always tried to fix things, whether they be close to me, far away from me, the community I'm in, family, whatever it might be. And suddenly I just had this time on my hands and saw this problem. And maybe I only saw it also because I come from DIY, and suddenly I was in this point of success, and I'm thinking to myself, things don't feel right. I see things changing. I'm crazy enough to try, and I have the time to do it.
When you first started floating the idea, and as you started, building it and stuff, and you start telling other artists about this, what was the initial response like most of the time?
In my mind, I think when I first had the idea, I said to myself, oh, this is going to be really easy. Like, everyone's going to do this. Why wouldn't they? And I think the first set of people I called, they were like, wow, that's an interesting way to look at it. And in a positive, they were like, I've never thought about actually DJs giving to other people to solve this problem. And I probably was naive about how big the problem actually was. I saw the problem, but I didn't know the depths of royalties, collection societies, publishing issues, copyright, listening, all the systems that are listening at clubs and not listening at clubs, trying to gain data. I didn't even understand the depths of that. And solving this one little singular thing suddenly opened up parallels next to it of all these other issues that I suddenly thought, well, wait, if I fix this thing, it could actually affect these 5 other issues that are in line with it. So why wouldn't I do this? Because one thing knocks all the dominoes down. And I think the first people I approached also were probably people who I'm close with, who are good human beings, I think. So they also altruistically thought, why not? Give it a try. I didn't approach I try not to surround myself with terrible human beings. So I didn't approach the terrible human being and say, I have this great idea. And they're like, oh, why would you do that? So I think my excitement, and I hate to say, I think I'm a good salesman. So I probably sold myself on the idea of doing it. And then I think I sold the first people that I talked to on like, why can't I do this? And they're like, well, why can't go for it then. And I just did it. And then I found Ethan and my team and the crew of people who helped. And they also dived in head first to the impossible for minimum and committed to it because they also were like, hey, we believe in this. Let's go.
I think the platform officially launched, or the beta launched, it was in 2022. Was that when it went public?
Yeah, like March 2022, end of March.
Yes.
Yeah, March
we ran a
27th.
private beta for about 6-7 months, testing with like a small group of artists and working out some kinks and some bugs. We developed before that for a year and a half. So it took us about 2 years to get to the public, and then we lived in public for around 2 years.
Yeah. So once it's public, once it starts going, what were the main challenges, just like on a day-to-day level, running this thing?
I mean, I think, funnily enough, there was person power is like clearly a problem, right? It takes a lot of work to do a lot of things with a small team of people working hard. There's always more that you want to do. You can, you have a to-do list of 10 things that you'd like to accomplish. You have to be realistic about that. But I think what I felt in the moment, especially the first year, was, there's nothing you can copy, right? You think about so many other things we do, especially in this YouTube era. You can YouTube anything. You want to build a house, you could YouTube that. If you're working at a tutorial, you can go read you can read work from your peers. If you're making music, it doesn't even have to be tutorials. You can go listen for it. But, building something from scratch, I can't even speak to how much time we spent problem solving. I mean, how do we pay out a group? I mean, oh my God, the amount of time we spent figuring out how to get 2 people registered on a group and get them to approve. There's very few groups in electronic music, and there's even less of them that still get along. That's my little hot take. But figuring out these problems was really a big part of that first year, was like really trying to make sure that every single thing worked and being reactive to suggestions from our users.
What about onboarding? Was was it a challenge to get people to sign up and then use it?
Yeah, I mean, we were crazy enough to try to reach out to people individually. Like our back-end Excel sheet that we kept of artists, how many times we contacted them, did they respond, what genre of music do they play, any blanks that we can kind of fill in. The amount of people that we tried to reach out to personally, that's also, we could have blanketed people, we could have sponsored ads, we could have, carpet bombed everyone with as many requests as possible. But the reality is we actually reached out one by one, and then we held some group things weekly for a while. Being crazy enough to do that, I think, is the only way to do it, actually, to get people to understand. I think the onboarding itself, we actually thought it through so clearly that when I finally got some people to sign up, they would actually write me being, wow, that was so easy. I'm sorry that it took me so long. Because there's always this hesitation of the unknown, or the next thing they have to sign up for, or the next thing they're supposed to do. So I'm actually just like being proud of what we did in general. I think a lot of things we thought out and we listened to people's feedback. We listened to the users. We asked people in our beta, and we changed things because of their feedback. And we were reactive, which was probably the smartest. We weren't too stuck in our ways on a lot of things. We were, oh, you don't like this? Okay, let us brainstorm how we can fix that to make it easier for you.
But when you did that singular, I swear I'm not like digging for dirt.
No, go for it.
I'm curious, like, you call someone, you email someone, you set up a Zoom meeting, you're like, let me tell you about Aslice. What was the response like? And then what was the follow through like after that meeting?
I think actually it changed over time. So what Zach mentioned, I think it mentioned it in the report we published, but what a lot of people don't realize is we spoke to 400 DJs in like a focus group before we even launched. So every week we started out, Zach and I were just calling people one by one, and we're like, oh my God, this is too much. So then we moved to like a Wednesday where we tried to invite about 20 DJs, and this is during COVID. So actually, weirdly, people were pretty receptive because there was a feeling that like something could change, right? In COVID, when everybody's at home and saying, hey, when this ends, I want it to be better. And it was actually, there was a lot of positivity in that for us, right? People were interested, they had time, and then they were seeing their peers, people you might only see at a club or see at the airport, they're seeing them on our Zoom calls. There was a lot of positivity that came out of those early sessions, and I think that's probably why the launch got such a reaction. as time went on, though, I think you'd get a mix of reactions. You get people who are like, wow, okay, this makes it easy to do something. And then you can really suss out the people that, I guess, for lack of a better word, they talk about community a lot on the internet, on social media, but when it comes time to actually do something, they wouldn't sign up. And I think that was really a part that I think the human part of this that was really tough is, you know a lot of these people. Like, a lot of these DJs in the real world, you've worked with, you've had conversations with, and have somebody tell you, like, oh, I'm definitely going to sign up, or I like your idea, and then not. It puts you in this really tough position of like, well, I don't want to nag you. I don't want to make you feel bad, but we actually believe we have something here that works, and it works better the more people that get involved. And that was really, I think, the tension that we felt a lot of the time.
I mean, I think the one thing that we realized pretty early on, once we got out of COVID and people started playing more, and then we got past that first excitement period, was our community are still human beings, and human beings intrinsically have selfishness, ego, certain characteristics that get in the way of them doing things in life. And the DJ culture is no different. And I think what was really interesting to us was to see, and I think what kept us fighting as long as we did, was that watching the small, unknown artist living in third world countries, second world countries, who didn't have the money and found the money and did it because they understood the value, because they were still the ones struggling. And I think what frustrated us the most was watching the bigger artists who maybe even came from that initially. But as humans, this is where we had to realize that at some point when somebody has a problem, they see a solution and they're willing to fight for that. But once they've gotten past that point, maybe they don't look back anymore and say, oh, I need to be a part of this. I'm good. And that's what we found, I think, with a lot of people that I expected slightly different. And I think from a human side, that's hard when we're not bots, we're not corporate, we're part of this community. So having to talk to people, chase people, run into people, at some points can be disheartening and difficult, but we push through as good as possible.
I mean, you were still DJing every weekend. Did you have a lot of like awkward run-ins in the DJ booth of like, hey, I need to email you back about Aslice, a lot of that?
I learned to be very short with people during that time because I knew, the hard part is I'm Zach and I'm also DVS1 and I'm also the guy running Aslice. And, there's the guy running Aslice knowing that I need to be politically correct, that I need to be everyone's friend, I need to be conscious, I need to be aware, because whether I like your music, whether I like your personality, anything, none of that matters, because I need you to be a part of this really amazing thing that helps everyone. Okay, that's one side. And then there's Zach and DVS1 who have a personal opinion, and I knew that at that time, Zach's personal opinion wouldn't always be the right one to share. So it was hard at times, yeah, absolutely, but I learned to keep myself to myself at that point. I tried to keep my conversations, at a certain pace and at a certain level. But yeah, like Ethan and I were joking because Ethan lives in bizarro world on the other side of the earth, living in Australia now, and I'm living here in Central Europe. And so, I ran into a lot of people on a day in, day out basis, and a lot of my team only had to deal with calls and emails. And it is difficult. It definitely eats you up when you see people who, like Ethan mentioned, talk a lot, but don't follow through with their actions.
Obviously, Aslice in the end didn't work out. You had to close it. When did you realize that it wasn't going the way that you wanted it to, and that the initiative might be in trouble?
I mean, I would say, I think it's not even that it wasn't going the way I wanted it to. I think it's realizing that the thing that we were trying to tackle was so big. And even as I said at the beginning, when I started the idea of Aslice, it was this singular idea. And then this idea suddenly solved 5 other ones. And then it became bigger. And people were looking at us saying, so can you solve the royalty issue? Because initially my issue wasn't to solve royalties. It was, I think I have an idea for DJs to help producers to make this community stronger. But then it became, well, can you guys fix these other 5 problems? Okay. So I think at some point when I realized that this would be a 10 to 15 year project before it would break even, before it would profit even, or before it'd be in a position where it could thrive, I think seeing the the intake of new artists coming and realizing it was not going to go at the pace that I needed it to go to sustain myself, and then realizing that I would need to, and one of the subjects you guys had in the other panel was taking corporate money, taking investment money, taking all those things. It was a conscious choice for us not to do those things. We could have spent 6 months chasing corporate investment and probably got it. But what would we have to give up for that? And what morality would we have to give up for that? And our business was based on a moral presence and a moral backbone. And so I think when I realized that I would have to either adjust those things, change those things, or sacrifice those things, I think at some point I had to make a choice of mental stability, human stability, and I had to realize also and ask myself, did we accomplish enough to drop a mic and walk away? And I think the answer was yes. And so I felt okay, not good, but I felt okay saying, I think we've done our part. We've shown everyone it's possible. And even to this day, like, our technology is available for people. What's interesting, and we can get to that later, is, there's been a lot of people who said they want to carry on what we've did, but every time I've had conversations with people, I've said, tell me your idea. Present it to me in a way that shows me that what you're doing is real, and maybe I'll share this technology with you that we built, because it's available. And if the world wants to do this and fix it, it can be done. But I think it was our time to lay it down and let other people take that next step.
Well, this gets to my next question. When you did close, there was the closure announcement, and then you did this big report, and then no press, no interviews, no chiming in on social media, which I'm sure must have been very difficult to not do at times. Like, why did you choose to do that mic drop approach and not get involved in the discourse of it?
I mean, it was really intentional. I mean, you have to look at that and understand that was really a choice. And I would say that that's how we ran Aslice. Everything we did was really intentional. But I mean, a couple of things came to mind for us. I think first and foremost, when you're taking money on behalf of people, you owe them total transparency. And that was paramount to everything we did, right? Everything was about protecting people's rights at every step of the way. There were so many different ways we could have sold data or done stuff, but we never wanted to get into this realm that was unethical. So we thought, well, first of all, we owe everyone a real explanation. So that was one decision that was really obvious. We needed to be really transparent about what was happening and why. But really, we felt by commissioning a third party, the other thing, so we were able to offer transparency. The other thing about having a third party audit, though, is that it's really easy. You see these good ideas come out. Every year, you've probably heard about 100 startups this year at ADE. Some of them will succeed, some of them will fail. You hear these good ideas that people don't get behind, then it's like, oh, I always knew that wasn't going to work. And I think we really felt like we owed it to the community to not let people forget that this did work. And then finally, the mic drop was really there's nothing that we could say that the report didn't say better. So that we felt like there was no better statement than actually sharing every single thing that we learned. So every reason why we closed, what worked, what didn't, and give people some ideas of, well, what could we do next? Where could this conversation go? I think we even hinted at that in the report, which was the idea here is to keep this conversation going. It's not about us closing. It's okay, well, here's what you might need to know to figure out how to do this better than we did.
I mean, part of Aslice's big challenge at the beginning was, just like I think any solution you're trying to create for anything, you have to first let people know what the problem is. And that was one thing that I still hear to this day, is a lot of people said, I didn't know this was as big of a problem as it was until I heard about Aslice. And that, I think, is part of, again, one of the many things I'm proud of that Aslice did, is started the conversation, put the problem in plain view, and again, showed whether our tech is the solution or our idea is the solution or a different one is, it's absolutely possible. So these big companies who are supposed to be working for us, taking care of us, who have millions in budgets, and they still haven't found a solution. Meanwhile, me and Joe Schmo figured out how to do it with none of that money. That means it's absolutely possible. And so now that we know the problem is here, you either ignore it or you don't. There's only those two choices now. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of ignoring the problem, If you dig into this report that you put out, if you haven't seen it, it's still online. It's over 50 pages long.
There's a shorter summary at the beginning
Okay.
of it. So you don't have to read the whole thing. The first 12 pages tell you the next 48.
But I dug into it.
Yeah, good.
And I pulled out some statistics. So less than 5% of the quote-unquote busiest DJs, and that was based on how many gigs they have on Resident Advisor, less than 5% used the platform. Less than 2,400 total DJs signed up, and of those, over 60% never made a donation. Only 37 total DJs donated a total of $1,000 or more using the platform. Hearing those numbers, like,
Humans.
are you disappointed in your peers?
Again, define our peers as human beings first, and then realize that it's not actually surprising. Were we upset? Yes, because we're human too. So I think having a first guttural instinct of disappointment is fair. And then I think stepping back a year later, I can really calmly say, it's humanity. That's what humanity is, unfortunately. It's, if you break that percentage down into almost any issue of our reality, of our governments, of our political issues, of our divide, that is kind of the same. It's actually no different. And it's unfortunate that that's the reality, but that's why I actually like, maybe things need to be mandated instead of optional. You know, maybe things that benefit our communities or better our lives should be mandated instead of optional. Because what we did was obviously optional, and at this phase, it was optional. And you know, without being negative, I can say this. I had less issue with people who didn't sign up for Aslice and maybe gave an excuse or for whatever personal reason that they wanted to wait a while than some people who signed up, according to those percentages, and either didn't use it or used it only one way, to take but not give. Because in the end, you know, you can't expect if you take and never give back that the world will keep running. It just doesn't run that well. I mean, if we're all talking about community is both ways. It works both ways.
I just want to add some context, like, funnily enough, because, like, I think when we hear the 5% number, it's easy to feel hurt. It's easy to say, like, damn. But, like, that's what hurts, you know, like, that's what feels bad in the moment. But if we look at this a different way, which is, if you were, I don't know who runs a record label in here, but if you had 5% of the ADE attendees buy your 12-inch, you'd be laughing all the way to the bank right now, right? So, like, 5%, you know, we had no idea. Funnily, that was a number that we didn't have a sense of until that report came out. And that was actually one of the last data points that made it in. The company that audited Audience Strategies, they took RA data to come up with this analysis. It's the first time that I think the number of professional DJs has been quantified. So we had no idea what this number was. If you would have asked me, I probably would have guessed the number was like 2.5%. So it's frustrating to hear those numbers as a person in the community. You wish that your community did more. And we really, like, as humans, we're like, we can convince these people. We met them in COVID. They were there. They smiled. They liked it. So that part felt frustrating for us. But if we take our heads out of that and just look at any business, capturing 5% of your total addressable market is like nothing to shake a stick at. So I think that's the tough reality of these numbers. And you see that with Spotify's and the SoundClouds of the world. SoundCloud became profitable after 17 years and like dozens of millions of dollars being flushed down the drain first. Spotify has been profitable a few quarters. I don't think they're even like profitable for 1 year on the book. So
Except for Daniel Ek.
yeah, so it's what, except for Daniel Ek. So it's one of those things. That's like, those are these tough numbers that you like are basing your reality on, of like, oh, what we want to do from our community versus like a real business perspective.
I mean, if we think of DJs as humans, as you said, you know, they exist in this dance music sphere for all the talk about community and working together and the roots of the culture being in DIY culture and warehouse parties and all of this stuff that's been idealized. The truth of it is this industry is like hyper-individualistic, hyper-capitalistic, almost zero regulation of the business practices. Knowing that, in retrospect, was it a bad idea to have to try and get a voluntary system off the ground, knowing?
For sure, it was naive and hopeful, 100%. But it came from, again, community background and DIY background that I think made it pure. And I think people who read between the lines or even just read the story, knowing us or not knowing us, I think could see that what we tried to do was authentically pure. And we did it for the right reasons. And in that context, is naivety a wrong reason to do it? No. I think, again, Aslice served its purpose. Maybe it wasn't meant to be the solution to the problem. Maybe it was just meant to show people the problem and to show people anything is possible. Maybe that was actually Aslice's purpose. As much as my initial purpose was to fix it, maybe that's actually not what the purpose of it was. And if that's the case, I'm absolutely okay with it.
When you look back at, how you did things, how you built the platform, how you ran it on a day-to-day level, are there things in terms of execution that you wish you had done differently?
I mean, with anything, right? Any of us at any job in the world, you can always find stuff to do better. I think we're really proud of a lot of the work that we did. I think most people don't realize how small of a team it was. I think actually a big problem in our first year is we didn't expect the launch to go so well. And that actually really made it a tough first year by getting so much attention so quickly. We had all these things that we had set out to do that we got distracted by. Because we had so much interest at first. We thought there was going to be this kind of quiet growth. And it was like, oh no, this is a totally different thing. A lot of the stuff that I reflect on, I'm curious to hear yours, but like a lot of mine was, how we took care of our staff was like, we all worked way too hard. And you could see the burnout in people. And if you've ever had to manage a team, you feel really bad about yourself, right? When you can see that your people are working too hard. And you set the culture, so you have to reflect on that in yourself of like, we're all working too hard, we're all not taking enough time. And I think that's like, funnily enough, that's one of the things that I reflect on, like, I really feel bad about. But the other thing that I think I would do differently is we had a lot of people interested in figuring out how they could help. And because we built a business based on equity, every part of the business was based on equity. If you want to build a business on equity, it has to really reflect that. And so people say, hey, how can I do something? I said, well, all right, well, listen, tell your friends to use it, tell people about it, but like I can't have you do free graphic design work or whatever it is because we have to pay people. You have to pay. The whole business is based on paying creators, so I can't take free work from you. And I wish we would have come up with a system to have more community contribution in a way that felt equitable. I think that would have been maybe my biggest thing that I would do differently.
I would agree with Ethan because a lot of people came to us, and let's say of 100 people, maybe 5 would have been genuinely useful. But I wish we would have. I agree. I wish we would have found a way to take advantage of that because a lot of people from the outside think that we had this massive staff. It was not a massive staff. It was a handful of us doing the work of a massive staff at minimum wage or nothing. And yeah, I wish we could have taken advantage of some of the offers of help and found a way to make it equitable for them. And maybe looking back, maybe how we've laid out our ownership, maybe how we figured out some shares or ways that we could give people something to work for so it wasn't free. Maybe that would have been good because I think having more genuine help and more intelligent minds and maybe a few outside perspectives that we would have trusted, it couldn't have hurt us. It definitely would have helped us. Would it gotten us further? I don't know. But would it have helped us take a day off when we needed it? Absolutely. Because, during COVID, when Ethan and I really first started working together before we put the team together, it was easy because I wasn't traveling on the weekends and life was calm. But the moment I got back on the road and was still running this Monday through Friday and then traveling Friday through Sunday or Monday, that became really tough, and I'm also the hands-on person. So because I couldn't hire enough people because all this was getting paid out of my pocket, I also ran the development team, and then I supervised other projects, and then Ethan and I would split tasks. And, we had teams, we had people in America, we had people in Australia, we had people in Europe. I would wake up and there would be somebody awake at all times that I had to call or talk to. So, he would be up 2 a.m. having meetings, and I'd be up at 3 a.m. calling him, and then at 8 o'clock somebody would be waking up over here. And I mean, you can only run that for so long. That's just unmanageable as a human.
I mean, I don't know what the exact total is. I don't know if you want to share it, but my guess is that you lost easily six figures.
I mean, you can do the math. It cost us $250 a year, and we were open for almost 4 years, and that came out of my pocket. And put it this way, and I hate to say it, I never even knew I had access to that much money. But when I had to pay for people's lives, I found the money. I sold a property I had. I sold off speakers I used to own. I hustled my ass on gigs. And I mean, when I say this, and it's not to feel bad for me, but like, I dedicated it, and when I committed to paying people, every penny I made on the weekends went to pay those people. And, and only now am I getting myself slowly out of the hole and like being able to say, okay, I need to take some time for myself to be healthy, mentally, physically, all those things. Luckily, and I say this jokingly, luckily I'm not human and I can handle a lot, but even I have my limits, and I hit my limits during that period for sure.
I mean, it's funny because hearing you talk about this now, I've heard you talk previously about the experience you had when you had the club. Like,
I thought I hit my limit.
Yeah.
I didn't even come close.
Like,
Aslice was my limit and beyond.
Like, do you just have a weird like kink for like impossible projects that lose a ton of money?
I mean, yes, I do. Yes.
That was actually our first conversation. So Zach, I was telling him, I was like, this sounds impossible and dumb. I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Exactly. I mean, but that's the thing. Like, again, I've always thrived on somebody being like, you can't do this, and I'm like, watch me. And in all reality, maybe in the course of my life, all the things I've done, like I hate to say, when you're in your 10s and 20s, your problems are $10, $15, $100 bills. When you're in your 20s and 30s, they're exponentially one more zero. And when you're in your 30s, 40s, it's add another zero. But they're all the same level of problem. You're just playing on a bigger scale. So when I took risks in my 10s and 20s, they were penny risks. When I took them in my 20s and 30s, they were 100,000 whatever risks. And now I just took a really, really big one. Again, coming from DIY culture, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, this culture and this community gave me the opportunity to have this extremely privileged life of playing music for a living. And I get to do what I love. And so I feel like I owe that community something back. I have to at least try. And I wouldn't have risked it if I didn't think I could somehow survive it. And I'm still here, and I'm still breathing, and I'll survive it. I took a hit. But in the end, luckily, I don't have kids. I don't have crazy life expenses, so I'll heal from this. It's all good. But again, this was my contribution back, and yes, I'm crazy, and I hopefully will have learned my lesson from this. Probably not, but hopefully it won't cost me as much.
I just want to add like one thing that really came out of this, right, is that when you do projects like this that have meaning, you meet people that care about things that have meaning. And I think that was really a sustaining force, and that you want to be around crazy people who want to do things that change things. Yeah. And for me, coming out of RBMA, when you have the ability to do things that matter around whether you like a branded platform or not, I have no judgment on that. But when you are able to do work that matters around the world, it's like you almost feel like, well, if I can do something that has impact, I feel like I have to. And you meet people that have that same mindset. So that was maybe one of the things that kept us going through this whole process. Is like you just meet other people that are trying to build, Underground Music Academy or whoever it was that we were meeting, the charities that we were working with. Those are the people who inspired us.
Absolutely.
And kept us going.
And I mean, I would even echo that and say like, we walk around in this daily thing and like everyone's your buddy, everyone's your friend. You go to the club. But once you filter some of those people out and you really get to the core of like the people who are really in it for the right reasons and like the real deal, it's inspiring. Like Ethan and I would always say when we get in the room with somebody intelligent and have a meeting about Aslice or what they're working on even, and we look at each other and we'd be like, what a treat to just sit in the room with somebody who's a good human being, who's smart and like sees the world just cockeyed enough to believe they can make a change. And that's a beautiful thing. And that won't stop.
And that's DIY culture, right? Absolutely. Is this thing needs doing and no one's doing it, so
fuck it, let's do it ourselves.
The problem that you're addressing, I think to the average layperson, even the average person in electronic music, it sounds simple at first, like, oh, DJs have a lot of money, producers don't have a lot of money, let's address that. Obviously, you got into this and you you start learning about problems with everything from metadata of files to the royalty system not working appropriately. This is a huge problem. Given that, do you think putting the impetus on individuals to donate to something to address what's essentially a multi-systemic problem, was that like the wrong approach to something like this?
I'm still going to say no. And the reason why I'm going to say no is because governments have already been sued. Collection societies have already been sued. All those places have been sued because of their misuse of their positions and of their responsibilities. So I still think proving it from the ground up is the only way to make change on that level. Because if we could have sustained for 10 years, maybe we could have gone to the government level and said, here's a way to make it happen. Make this mandatory in your government things. Because like governments make clubs pay collection societies. If they don't, they can take away their liquor licenses, close them, do whatever they want to do. But yet governments don't enforce the collection societies to pay artists. So the enforcement only goes one direction. And so the only way to really change that is if we can then show them the power of a system that works and say, enforce it. Because if the government enforces it, whether we like the government or not, we all agree as humans to live by a set of laws, whatever. But if we can get the government to enforce it or legislation to enforce it, then it becomes something that, hey, this is proven to work, now just make it mandatory. And in all reality then, in that context, I don't think we made a mistake starting from the artist. Because actually, I was just talking about it with somebody in here before this panel, was the reality is clubs already have to pay these fees to collection societies. They're already paying the artists, they're paying the collection societies. The audience is already paying to the ticket to get in the door to hear the artist. So who's left in that chain to give money? Ultimately, I think we were still right to start with the DJ because they were being paid, and half the time that music is coming from artists who aren't getting their money. It's not that I hate to say it, I still do go buy music, and I know a lot of artists who do go buy music, but I also know more artists that play free promos all the time. And so that becomes the first issue I tried to solve, which is the free and I get paid, you don't. But now looking at it and connecting it to the royalty system, that's even a secondary reason why the DJ ultimately, because everyone's paying for that DJ to be there, but that DJ is actually playing a bunch of free music half the time. So I think starting with the DJ is the right move.
One approach I'm curious if you considered is, did you think about approaching, I know you made some partnership deals with festivals I think in the second year. Like, if that had been a more of a priority in terms of like, make a deal with whatever, a venue, a festival, and they come out and say, everyone that we book has to agree that they're going to use Aslice, or we're going to hold X percentage of their fee, we're going to put it in escrow, and just some kind of system that basically made it more mandatory for DJs to participate whether they wanted to or not, because DJs want to play the gig. So
that was where the support the sound came from, and that whole concept where we partnered with everyone. But again, until enough people take it and enough people come on board with the idea and agents accept that reality, clubs and festivals are willing to put their foot down and say, I will not book you again unless you do X. Unfortunately, it's also still had to be voluntary. And then again, remember that we're dealing with humans. And unfortunately, the reality is that even with a few festivals and clubs that were pushing that and doing their very best and taking the risk to be the first ones to try to do that, they ran into a lot of hurdles with artists saying, yeah, I'll sign up. I swear I will. Unfortunately, Aslice shut down long before there was time to see it the second year, right? So, of course, this year I booked you and you didn't do it. Maybe next year I can come at you when I book you and say, hey, remember last year when I asked you and you didn't do it? Unfortunately, Aslice shut down before we had a chance to see if that system would have worked. I think in the long run, the more people, and I'll be blunt when I say this also, is, I always said Aslice will succeed for three reasons. One is somebody just wanted to do the right thing. And but unfortunately, that's the smallest reality of the population. The second one is social pressure or social gain, right? Selfishness. If you're an artist and you want social gain, you look like a hero if you do this. So, hey, that's great. It's selfish. You get a good thing, but you do a good thing. Social pressure is enough people around you doing it saying, hey, why aren't you doing this? And the third one was you could write this off on your taxes. which is great. Don't give the money to the government. Give it to your artists and get the write-off. For whatever reason you did it, you'd be doing a good thing. So Aslice would have needed to exist for 10 years. The Support the Sound campaign would have needed to exist for 4 or 5 years. To feel the social pressure, to feel the social gain, to get the tax write-off, and to be a hero. And then once you started seeing all those things, you'd be like, oh my God, why wasn't I doing this before? Because I always gave the example to somebody, we live in a promo world, and I'm sure anyone who runs a record label in here or has ever paid for a promo will understand. You're paying hundreds of euros, dollars, whatever, for a promo. And I would look at those same people and say, what do you get from that promo? Oh, I get a bunch of messages that say, thanks, downloaded for, and nothing. And I would say, so imagine if you spent 10 euros to upload a playlist, and now suddenly 30 artists were talking about you on the internet, bigging you up for doing that. Wouldn't that be a better investment? And they were like, holy shit, you're right. So I think it just needed time, and this is why my first statement I made at the beginning was maybe my biggest regret was not finding a way to be open 10 or 15 years, because I just think it needed people time to really absorb all the good, bad, and ugly about the reality of if you did this, you could benefit. And if you could benefit, then why wouldn't you do it?
The problem in the meantime, though, is that as time passes, it's become normalized for artists to not expect to get money from making music. Like, I think if you talk to a producer who's 23 years old, they're not expecting like, oh, I'm gonna sell a bunch of copies of this song and it's gonna make a lot of money, or even if it blows up on streaming, they're like, oh, I'll get a few $100.
Sure. A few hundred, what do you mean, really?
Well, if it really...
Who do you know who's gotten a few hundred off streaming?
But is that tendency already, are we too far along down that road to reverse that trend? Whether it's, it's not gonna be Aslice that reverses it, but in general.
I don't think so. I mean, I think Aslice proved that anything can come from this. I think what I found hope in as we closed and reading these closing messages is Sam Barker made some particular good comments. People, I think there was a sentiment from several people who I thought had some interesting vision, which was like, I might change the music I make. I might change how I release a record to deal with my reality. And to me, that's the kind of thinking that gave us hope, which is like, think about things differently. What does this look like next? So I think that's really my hope for anyone is like, this system doesn't work. So why are we participating? Let's build a different system. And that could be Aslice, that could be a streaming service or a Subvert, that could be, hey, I want to make lathe cut records and just give them to my favorite 10 DJs. All of these things are possibilities, but we don't have to just do the same thing everybody's done over and over and over. We know the result.
If you could go back in time, would you do it again?
Yes, but could I get somebody else's money to do it? And not have to give up my morals or values. That would be great, and because then I could hire a few more people and I could at least take one day off a week while doing that. That would be my only thing I would change. But yeah, again, giving back to my community has always been, for me, a pillar in what I do. So I would not change that. I don't regret that. So no, I would do it again. Yeah.
Ethan, you as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we learned so much. I think we set out listen, you'll notice if you ever read anything we said this is an experiment, right? And we're so grateful that everybody participated in this experiment with us. That's what community culture is. This wasn't a top-down, we've decided the rules and you're playing my rules. It was like, let's build something, let's figure out what works. And that was the relationship we had with all of the users. And that's why I think so many people were so hurt by the shutdown, is it felt like something we had all built together. So no, I don't take that for granted, and I'm really grateful to have had the experience. I'd absolutely do it again. It's just really hard doing it when you move to Australia and have to work all night long. Yeah.
All right, I want to open it up to questions from the crowd. So, all right, over there, just wait for the mic to come to you.
Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hi, okay. Well, first up, it's Ross Harper here from Brighton. I run a label, City Wall Records. It's been going 17 years. And I want to say a big thank you to both of you. I had the pleasure of meeting Ethan yesterday, who invited me. I did profit from Aslice, as producer, and I mean, the problem is huge, right? Like, we've had tracks played in Depeche Mode world tours, we've had tracks played all around the world, but me and my other artists, we don't really get paid from it, right? It's massive thanks to you two. I think in terms of the question is how do we solve it? What is the silver bullet? Because people are inherently selfish and they look after their own interests. And so, what's the next step? How do we crack it?
Let's solve it right now.
Today, all right,
ready?
let's go.
Spend 5 minutes on it. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, to me, it's funny. I still have a lot of optimism in the world for this topic. I have a lot of pessimism for a lot of other things in the world. But to me, it's actually the solution is the same as it's always been, which is find your community of people and make things. Do the best things that you can do. Be the best version of you. And find the people that care about the same things and build something together. I think, the internet and social media and the professionalization of this culture has confused people into what the work actually is and like what the goals are. But for me, I've really tried to retain, I guess from how I grew up, which is like, I don't need to be a star. It doesn't need to be a solution for 100 million people. Like, these solutions can be small. And that was what I mean by that last example, is like, it could be anything. It could be vinyl, it could be tapes, it could be no music at all, it could be only improv live performances. I think my point of view is really get outside of these systems. These systems don't work for us. But the solution doesn't have to be macro, it can be micro.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Ethan, definitely. Like, on the esoteric level, yeah, build things for your community. Figure out how to sell things to your community because they're the ones supporting you. On a business side, and, if I have to say it, again, I kept using the word mandatory earlier, but I think mandatory solutions might be the only way. And I don't think that mandatory should be clubs having to give money to collection societies. I don't think that should be believing that they're on our side. I don't think that should be believing that they're going to change a fucking thing. I think the mandatory should be we as a collective community should come together with what needs to change and force politicians and governments to make changes in our benefit. Because I think it has to come from the top down. It's the one thing I realized fighting from the bottom up, is that the hope would have been that we could have gotten to the top at some point and convinced them to make the rules better for all of us. And as much as we all hate rules, those rules would benefit us.
Thank you.
All right, over there.
Hi guys, thank you so much for your help that you've given me on our campaign. I'll just preface it with a statement because everybody here looks like they're a creative, or knows a creative, or at least sculpts or writes or whatever. I think that no creative who tries to hide the name or the work of another creative should ever be allowed to do so, or to be enabled to be allowed to do so. Right? And I think secrecy is the biggest poison in techno, the normalized secrecy about your track list and your set list. And you were so instrumental in this when you told me that some people were reluctant to share or reluctant to sign up because they didn't want to share the work of other people. And then
we
told
even found solutions for that.
Yeah, right, exactly. But Ethan told me that on average it's like 2.7% of a DJ's set is original music by the DJ. How dare you? So I think everyone in the room can also at least begin by please just publish your set list. When you post something, when you post a video.
At minimum, publish the artist, and if possible, at maximum, publish all the information.
But how big of a problem do you think the secrecy normalization was for you? Like, how many people did you run into that said, oh, no, I don't want people to play the same tracks as me?
I mean, it was funny, like what Ethan said, we listened to our users. So that was one of the things we learned early on was, like I was always secretive of my playlist before Aslice, to be very honest. And when people would hit me up, because I don't put out a lot of mixes, they would say, hey, what track is this? And honestly, because half the time I can't remember the title, but I would remember who the artist was, I would say, hey, here's the name of the artist. At least just go dig through their catalog and find a bunch of music. So I would give up what I could. What I realized was when we were trying to break down every possible reason why somebody wouldn't use Aslice, that came up right away. And so we figured out ways that they could hide the track titles but still expose the artist name. And then we even came up with, well, listen, if you want to be really secretive, you can basically pay a little bit more. We created a higher minimum for those who want to keep secrets. So if you want to keep secrets, then pay more. Let's be honest. If you want to keep your shit secret, pay more for it. Like, fair enough. Pay for the right to keep a secret. Now, we also had in fine print that secret would still be reported to the collection society, so that that play would still be paid for legally. But through our platform, if the goal was to get the producer paid and recognized, it was at least the producer would get an email that said, DVS1 played your track. They didn't say which track, but here's a bunch of more money than they would have given you if they told you. So we at least found a compromise through our thing. So again, every problem has a solution.
I mean, that was really so much of what we were doing in development was, in the business, we're reducing friction, but really it was like taking away every barrier that could stop somebody from doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't want to share because you don't want to see that you play the same 3 tracks in a row every single set?
Here's the solution.
Here's the solution. You could put it, we'll take it and we'll randomize it. The solution, the question that you're asking about is an artist was like, hey, I'm playing this really old song from this artist, but I see they post every time somebody plays their records. It's gonna blow up this like classic track from them, yeah. And that's how we're like, okay, well, like if you want to hide the track that you're playing of the artist,
track, yeah.
You need to pay that artist more for that privilege. And Absolutely. So that was a lot of what we were doing day to day. That's the problem solving that I was speaking of. It's like these are problems that don't exist anywhere else in the world but this culture.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people try to, again, they think that this, and even me, naively thought that this would be a very easy thing to do. And then the deeper we got into it, like Ethan brought up at the beginning, it's a joke, but really, groups that don't get along anymore, groups that have changed partners, tracks that were written by one member of a group but not by the other member, and then who actually has the rights because they didn't register it, and We had to find solutions for every possible excuse, every possible problem, every possible issue. And we're not joking. I think the amount of time we spent on solving groups, which is a very small percentage of the people, was probably 50% of our time of developing answers to everything else. So there's a lot of things that we don't, that I think a lot of people don't realize goes into addressing a topic like this either.
But maybe for Frank, I don't think that was any more of a problem. I think it was a philosophical thing. Feeling like you have to voluntarily share your money, I think was probably the prevailing thing that we would have said. It wouldn't have been the track list thing.
That's something to say.
No, I mean, I know it's audience time, but I'm going to cut in with another question. Sorry. Because you guys have been talking about PROs, the performance rights organizations. Did anyone from these organizations see what you were doing and contact you and say like, hey, this could help us? Can we collaborate?
Yeah, I mean, so that was when I talk about, our trajectory the first year. We, we're really grateful. We had such an amazing response when we launched. But we had, speaking to CMOs or PROs, people use these terms somewhat interchangeably, we had that on our roadmap for year 2. And what you should know is we had like a multi-year plan for this project. That was like year 2 or 3 problem. And we naively were like, wow, okay, maybe we can create this systematic change. So we spent a ton of time taking these meetings with people.
Resources, time.
And then we ultimately built some tests. Booma, Stemra, and SOCAN in Canada were the ones that were actually the most receptive in trying things with us. But when it actually came time to monetize these things and figure out a way that these CMOs who, just for perspective, hundreds of millions of dollars can actually maybe find a way to help us create a sustainable model, getting that over the line was just impossible. And that wasn't unique to us. I mean, that was the advice we got before we started, is that CMOs and PROs work at a glacial pace. This is a multi-year conversation.
Somebody's always on vacation.
Yeah, exactly. So, but we spent a ton of time trying to also impact change at the rights organizations level.
I mean, we created a way that we could funnel playlist data to those PROs directly. And we went on like 3-month to 6-month test cycles with them where we sent them either global or domestic to their territory playlist with either tracks and artists that were played in clubs of their area or artists that were represented by them in other areas. So we hit multiple things that they needed for data. And then 3 or 6 months would pass, however long we agreed, and we'd be like, hey, so we're ready to move to the next phase of this. What do you think of the data? Could we figure out how we work together? This person's on vacation. And then a month later, now the other one's on vacation. And, frustratingly, and we've tried to, stay away from being negative, but to be factual, last year I sat on a panel with a few collection societies and a few other major players in our industry who run products trying to solve this problem. And they all sit year after year and they stroke each other's egos saying how they're trying to make it better for us. And I'm sorry, but I'm not doing Aslice anymore. They're not doing enough. And they're not doing it fast enough. And again, if we could do it, why haven't they done it yet? And this is why I say we need to go above them and we need to go to representatives, politicians, people who can force change, because these companies will say, but they forget that they actually work for our benefit. And until we remember that and hold them accountable, just like we should government and other places, they're not going to change fast enough for us. And it's unfortunate because they should.
All right, I think we have time for one more.
We can go over by a couple. Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, all right. So here, he's coming to you.
Hello, my name is Noam. I'm the founder of OHR, and it's actually a new platform inspired by Aslice. So I have a question about, I know that you didn't share the track list that you received, right? Or maybe part of the business model was to sell it to other organizations, right? Or
we actually had a system built where we were going to publish this to the public, like with DJs and producers having some level of privacy, but that was one of the things we weren't able to do before we closed.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the thing that when we were talking for a moment, I had mentioned to you that we had a third area of, or a second area of Aslice that we never had a chance to launch, that we were mapping out and laying out, which would have been a place where the playlist data could live to the public, to fans, to super fans, to observers, and potentially find ways to monetize that as well to help more producers get more money into the system, do more things.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm curious what you think about our idea, because we are looking at it from a different perspective, a tiny bit. So we're trying to see attention as a currency. And instead of monetizing those track lists, we want to transparently open it. And creating a clickable map of where you can basically click through track lists to find new producers and to see how they are connected, where they're featured in other sets. And yeah, basically you can click through it and the producers get exposure instead of money at the moment. And I'm curious, if you think it's enough. Oh, I mean, it doesn't need to be enough, but maybe it's a good start.
I would say, listen, I think trying to monetize or trying to hack the attention economy feels like a noble cause as far as I'm concerned. What we saw on the data side was fascinating. I think that's one of our regrets actually was, that was what we were trying to do with the report, was we learned so many things about this culture through seeing what people were doing, what they were playing in what countries. It's really, really interesting. I suspect you would face the same kind of adoption or kind of that pushback of many DJs feel very uncomfortable with sharing their playlist data to the public. So my advice would be to kind of work through finding your own solutions to understand the culture and give people various levels of engaging privacy that's ethical and respectful to creators.
Yeah, because I mean, ultimately, yeah, the biggest problem starts with where do you get the data, and whether you're getting it directly from the machine with their consent, because ultimately, if it's just collecting it for a collection society where nothing is public, you don't have to get a DJ's consent. Ultimately, they play on the equipment, and Kuvo or whatever Pioneer's product could just take that info and send it to the publishing company. But the moment you put it on the internet, you need the DJ's permission ultimately, because they played the set. Much as we don't think it should be their permission, because it's the artist tracks.
I would love them to gain from it as well.
100%. But
yeah.
What I'm trying to point out is, again, let's say the minimum playlist on Aslice was €10. So let's say you even made it free. Just saying, be aware that a lot of DJs are hesitant in sharing their playlist for the multiple reasons that we ran into. Now, I wish you the best of luck, because if you can get the data, then you can create anything with it.
Yeah.
And like Ethan said, the attention sphere is a noble one to break, and if you can get people because of that, amazing. But the first thing you have to tackle is how are you going to get that data?
I think like we see it actually a movement that is also a lot about sharing. Like I see it all over Instagram. I see it on SoundCloud descriptions. So yeah, it's just like there's so many extra clicks you need to make to actually arrive to the producer. So I rather focus right now on the DJs that do want to share.
100%. And that's where you have to start.
Yeah.
Like, don't focus trying to convince the ones that don't want to. Focus on the ones that actually are willing to do it, because they're the ones who are doing it for the right reason. 100%.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Are we out of time or? All
I
right.
mean, we can run 5 minutes over if you got one more.
All right. I don't need a break.
Keep going. The next one is canceled. No, I'm just kidding.
Hi guys, and congrats, and thank you for your activism in the space. Have you ever considered doing something to give back to the DJs that would donate to the producers, so that producers would give, let's say, upfront promos or something, so that you would close the feedback loop? Okay, it's not altruism exactly, but it would train the system. I'll get in the trouble of donating and uploading the playlist, but hopefully I get something back down the road.
100%. So, if you don't mind, I'll jump. I mean, again, there were so many facets of Aslice that never saw the light of day because we didn't have time to release them before we made the decision to shut it down. Just already, again, when I mentioned it, the 3 reasons why an artist would have done it. 1, for the right reason. 2, because they gain something from it, right? Socially or morally or whatever. And the 3rd one was the tax write-off. Now, let's even add a 4th one. A lot of DJs became friends with producers. Producers suddenly got direct access to DJs because the DJs gave their playlist. That producer got a thing. Now that producer wrote to that DJ and said, oh my God, I noticed you played one of my tracks that I sent you 5 years ago. Let me send you a new batch of tracks. I can't tell you how many producers started sending me even more than I've ever been sent once I started Aslice, because I was playing their tracks week after week after week. The loop that we wanted to make at some point was, okay, as a DJ who travels a lot, meets a lot of people, I have a natural filter. When people go, Zach, can I get your email? I'm like, for what? I'm going to send you promos. I'm like, do it on SoundCloud. And then if I feel like I really connect with their music, then I give them my email and I say, send it there, because otherwise I'd get things. We wanted to create and I don't mind sharing this, we wanted to create an idea where you could opt in to receive private messages from producers through Aslice, where you didn't have to exchange your email address. If I played your tracks a bunch after 5 plays of your music, you could send me a request that says, do you want to get more of my music? And I could say yes. And then you could send me things through Aslice without us ever having to exchange contact info and close the loop of, I like your music, send me more of it. All those things were about establishing connections between people, not just for money, but for I like your stuff, I like your stuff, let's connect, you know? And I know people who got gigs out of like connections they met on Aslice. I know people who put out records together because of connections they made on Aslice, you know? So I've heard from people who like remotivated to restart making music because they stopped, but then suddenly somebody started playing their music that they'd sent 5-10 years ago. So yes, we just needed more time to release all these ideas that we had. But like we said, the first year hit us so hard that all the things we had on the map at the distance, we never made it there, you know?
If only you had a crypto element, it'd still be going.
Oh, don't even fucking say.
No.
And that's it. No.
No, I mean, I think we're out of time.
Yeah, we are. Now we are.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Zach. Thank you, Ethan.